Hello, everyone. I am Karchin Kitsune. Welcome to another Toonkind at 12 FPS. Today, I'll be playing my boy Norman Plume, my very normal, unassuming, definitely not evil at all boy. And I am joined today with my dear friend, who I haven't done an FPS with in a very long time. I'm
Hi.
very glad to get to hang out with her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute. Hi, I'm Yuni. I'm playing my sneaky detective man, um, Beckett, who, you know, he's good at not asking questions unless you ask him to ask questions.
Yeah. Funky noir detective man. And Yeah. So, a bit of context for this one. This one does take place after the events of the Iron Phantom, the game that Obby has been running. It's Obby with bees, not Avi. um, we haven't technically finished that one at the time of recording this one, but we kind of wanted to move certain story beats along. You know how it is.
hmm
So, yeah, basically, just we're assuming that like our guys like somehow figured out a way to get off that
We,
thing alive,
we're
save
just
us.
we're just taking that for granted that they
Yeah.
made it out of there somehow. And now
To be
Abby
fair,
can't legally kill us.
yeah. We've broken the system. Anyway, yeah, following the events of that, so Norman has asked Beckett for a bit of help with, like, a job he's been working on. Specifically, he's been tasked with, like, getting information on three particular individuals. And, who better to gather intel than a detective of all people? He
It
is, of course,
is,
paying for this. So,
yeah,
I think
kind
he
of
probably
kind
gave,
of
like,
what
a
he's good
half,
for.
like, yeah, he probably gave you like half the payment, like to start out with, and then the other half once you actually get the information, that sort of deal.
Yeah, that tracks.
Hmm. But yeah. So we did pre-roll these rolls. I forget what exactly each one was, but basically we had Beckett roll for each of the three people, and we'll be
Yeah.
getting more into that. Yeah. So as we start off, I think Beckett would probably have Norman meet him at his detective office, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. That unless Norman wanted to meet somewhere more inconspicuous, but otherwise Beckett's fine with having him at the office. Probably had Malloy clear out just not to um complicate things.
You want to like set the scene for us at all, or?
Yeah, so it's in Toontown, not exactly on the side of the tracks that people generally want to be. Um but not completely run down, but it is a
Yeah.
sort of unlabeled building, no signage to let you know what really goes on there. But Norman is if he knocks, he'll be called to, it's unlocked. And it is a
Yeah.
dimly lit, smoky office, you know, blinds drawn so that you get the cool slats of light across everything. It is quintessential. It is precisely what you think of when you think detective's office. This man is not throwing any surprises into it.
Definitely. I think Norman's probably got his kind of neutral expression like he usually does, but internally he does think it's a little bit cool, like seeing like he's not like, I mean, his genre choice is more horror, but like you just think like the noir aesthetic's a little bit cool. So despite everything.
Yeah, very cool. Definitely not pathetic.
Listen, it's fine as long as he does his job.
uh and yeah, Beckett is behind his desk, got he's like posed with like feet on the desk, hat down, as if being caught off guard, despite literally calling Norman in. uh,
think internally there's a little bit of an eye roll at that, just like tunes and their tropes.
and yeah, without looking up, he goes, "Glad you got here, okay?"
Indeed, thankfully it wasn't accosted on the way here, and he'll take a seat if there's like a place for him to sit down.
Yeah, there's a couple chairs in front of the desk. One is like covered with a jacket and probably some stacked dishes that haven't been cleared out for a while. Um,
And
but he keeps at least one of them clear for clients, so that's something.
I think Norman probably hangs up that big brown coat he's usually has hanging off his shoulders before he sits down. Uh, so, were you able to find the information I requested?
To some degree or another. He pulls out from under his coat three files and sort of holds them aloft, doesn't quite put them down yet. Some of them were more enlightening than others, but hopefully it'll be of use to you. Um,
Let's see what we have then.
Beckett pulls out one. And says, first off, well, I'll get the bad news out of the way first. This Shiro Azumi is, well, the best way to put it is he is aggressively boring. Um, he
Mm,
puts down like a very thin file.
yeah, I think Norman kind of frowns at that a bit, sort of looking a bit disappointment. Unfortunate, that's the one I was hoping to get more information on, but well, anything is better than nothing, I suppose.
Hmm.
And I'll open it and start kind of leafing through it.
Yeah, he keeps his nose clean, has well, coworkers seem to like him. It's frankly suspiciously nice.
Hmm. So, in other words, possibly trying to keep a low profile.
Well, I couldn't necessarily find solid proof of anything, but the thought is there.
Yeah. Because he's looking it over, he taps one part that mentions that he's associated with Moria's detective agency over in Villestown. He says, "Oh, well, this is useful at least. The location."
It's true. And he's
Yeah.
been looking into aberration cases, which hmm, could point in any number of directions, but it seems he's got an interest.
I'm gonna roll history real quick, see if Norman's heard of these aberration cases yet. Oh, 25.
Nice.
Yes, I believe I've heard about those. If I recall, it was people transforming into monsters due to emotional outbursts or something along those lines.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, considering he started off strong with murder cases, it feels like an interesting pivot towards emotional outbursts. But I couldn't find any direct reason for that shift in interest.
Hmm? Interesting that he's a murder detective. From one of the sources I was able to get a little information on, he's apparently a rather violent person. Possibly he's killed before, but well, they weren't able to confirm. Just more of a vibe from him, I suppose.
As in on the job or off the books?
Hmm. I would presume off the books if he's trying to keep his nose clean.
Hmm.
Again, I have no concrete evidence about that. Just sort of the overall demeanor, I suppose. But that's getting a bit too much into it. Let's move on for now, and he'll look at the look at the file that is marked with simply the name the professor.
Yeah. Uh, he's an interesting one. Found a lot of reports of him scattered about, but nothing especially, how do we put it, contiguous. And he'll hand over the file for Norman to leaf through. Seems he's got
Hmm.
some sort of teleporting device to make him a little harder to track, but he hasn't been able to cover up everything.
It seems he's had his nose in quite a few different things, and indeed the file has a list of quite a few different adventures the professor's been in. A few police reports that he's filed based around those adventures. I don't think I'm gonna list every single one, but let's see. There was a good one from Good Time Town. Um, there's one that interests him that he was involved in a case in the UPA University because that one also mentions one Dr. Crystal Everlight.
Right. And it's notable that in the vast majority of these, it's mostly just his name that's listed, and it's a generic name, so it's hard to be a
Yeah,
1000% certain, but there's at least a
that's
few
true.
physical descriptions that have
Right. I can
allowed
confirm
for,
this is the same guy, not just different people going by the professor.
yeah,
He
yeah,
certainly has a very distinct look about him, to say the least.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I think probably the most interesting thing that Beckett was able to get was about this red box that he hopped in and just vanished, um, as being a pretty solid indicator as, how he manages to be so hard to track.
Yeah. Well, seems like the majority of these are over in UPA. A few appearances in Toontown, so that narrows things down a little bit.
Chad, is this someone you've run into in the past or someone you're looking to make contact with?
The latter. I haven't encountered these people personally before, but let's just say there's an interested party who wanted to get more information on them. I'm not allowed to say any more than that, though. I do hope you'll understand.
Naturally. Beckett's still rolling insight, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's see. Uh, just rolling in D&D Beyond. Oh, I don't have permission to message in the channel, but I got a 16.
Okay, I'll have Norman roll deception, and I am apologizing in advance for his modifier.
Ooh,
Yeah,
nice.
that sounds about right, you little bastard. That is a 27. I built him for one very specific purpose.
I mean,
But
it
yeah, Beckett,
tracks. It certainly tracks.
you can, yeah. I mean, it was probably honestly the same like on the Iron fandom. It is like so hard to get a read on this guy.
Yeah, that's mostly like even if he can't get the specific information he would like to get, Beckett is certainly picking up on this kid has a perfect poker face.
Definitely. So yeah, with that, I'm afraid you cannot pick up like any particular details as to why this guy or whoever he may be working for is interested in finding these people or getting information on them.
That's fair enough. And like I said,
Yeah,
he's not going to press anything because, otherwise not a lot of people would be coming to him for his job.
definitely.
Um and as he leaves through what is definitely the thickest of the folders, um and he says, I think it is worth noting that our little mystery detective Zumi here seems to be a connecting factor between all three of your quarry.
Mhm.
Dr. Everlight had some touches with that same detective agency in those aberration cases, for
Seems to
whatever
be a
that's
connecting
worth.
thread between all three of them. No, that is quite useful to be able to confirm that. I'll say this one does look quite a bit more promising, as he's like opens the big file on Dr. Crystal Everlight.
Yeah, it's got a lot of info on her up to a certain point. Um, there is no mention of her going back more than 12 years, but there is also, he was able to track some notes on uh,
Mhm.
her family, her mother, her aunt, as well as a few other connections she had. It's definitely the beefiest of the three because she's a
Yeah,
professor, has a pretty good research trail.
pretty good paper trail. Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
yeah,
but it is definitely notable that there is a very, very noticeable drop off at a certain point of information.
hmm yeah. I know one thing on here is that there aren't any records of her name from before 12 years ago. That's an
Very,
interesting little detail. Yeah,
well, names change.
right. It's true. Norman says with well, internally, like he does again like poker face, but like internally, like he certainly knows about using different names and all that.
Beckett eternally his own little smirk, and yeah, he sure does too. um, yeah, there is yeah, notes on her mother, Anna, who also did research. There is a researcher named Lich, uh, who uh, helped, and it is mentioned in a few papers. Um,
And what's of very much interest is the mention that Lich has another great niece by the name of Cassie, which he does kind of make a note of. Interesting. Doesn't really say much on it though out loud, but he's definitely noting it down.
mhm,
Yeah, for reasons, let's say.
reasons. Uh, Beckett has also got note of, a couple of contacts that he was pretty sure would have more information, but he was not really able to uh, figure out a way to get a surreptitious interview with Lynn and Moria.
Yeah,
But
I
he's
think
he's
Norman will
noted
have
them
enough
down
hints.
as good potential leads if Norman wanted to either have him investigate further or go on his own.
I think Norman will shake his head. No, if as useful as that would be, it might be getting a bit too close, so to speak. But I'll definitely keep them in mind. Yeah, for the most part, he's not really saying like too much, aside from like the occasional like clarification and like maybe jotting like a note in his notebook or underlining certain parts of the files.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, and I think I want to have Beckett do a role.
Mm,
I'm like trying to be like I want to have him provide more insight than like just what's on the list, but I'm also like, oh, what can he roll to get more than what he already investigated, you know? Um
mm-hmm.
blah.
I am gonna tempted to have Norman roll something, maybe history. Basically, I want him to like roll to like see if he can kind of pick up the fact that like Azumi's name, like kind of marks him as like he might be a foreigner. Is
Yeah, that
maybe
makes
like a
sense.
history, yeah, yeah. Okay, 23,
23.
yeah. So I think
Yeah.
Norman kind of like glances over at Azumi's file and says, hmm, his name is certainly not. He's likely not from around here. At least the name sounds foreign. Oh, would that be? Close. Well, I suppose he could be Giblian, but there is also a possibility he might be Yiddish.
Well, it would track some of the difficulty tracking down his earlier life, but you know,
Indeed, if
like
he was foreign, then it would make sense there wouldn't be much available information on him here in this continent.
it is interesting. He well, it seems like he's somehow managed to make a name for himself despite being so non-specific.
Mm. Well, by the way, this does give me a lot more to work with than what I had previously. So I think you've more than earned your keep. And he'll reach into his pocket and pull out a little bag of coins and slide them across the table.
Um, Beckett. He picks it up and like sort of weighs it in his palm. He's like not going to count it directly in front of Norman, but he takes a second before
Yeah,
pocketing it. Um,
yeah, it feels pretty decently hefty. So,
yeah. Um, and
hmm. Here's a question: do you want to have Beckett roll survival to see if he could get like the address of some of these places, like especially Maury's detective agency?
yeah, I think uh he got a 13 on survival, so
Yeah.
it
So
feels
he
like
could at least like nail down like the general area of it, maybe not the exact building, but like kind of narrow the search down a bit.
yeah, can point in a direction. I mean, it is another detective agency, so it can be looked up. Certainly, if you know
Right.
the right inroads. Um, but frankly, it how to put it. It's like, well, he was able to find a lot more information about the other two, and so it was like him weighing, like, is it better to get more information on the people he's able to find stuff for, or press for what little he can get with someone he's getting next to nothing on? And so
Mm.
that's my excuse for him rolling real bad for Azumi.
That it makes sense. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Uh, man, I really want to have Beckett press Norman for more, but also it's like,
I mean, if you want, like, he's your guy. If he wants to try and press a little bit more.
uh, No, he won't do that. He is clocked this kid, but he's gonna be professional about it. What I think I do want to have him
Yeah.
do is um let's do an Arcana roll. Okay. So his I rolled Arcana to see if he could like pull up more thoughts about the connecting factor between the three of them with
Mm-hmm.
the aberration cases. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Especially now that Norman gave a little bit of a hint as what might be happening there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm also reading through the notes. Simply put, I think if uh, your own client wants you to look further into this, looking into these emotional outbursts is going to be what gains you the most information. There is a lot of research to be done, especially here in Inkwell, about the connection between magic and the planes and emotional states. Things
Yeah, definitely gonna note.
things bleed.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely gonna note that down as another avenue to search for. For now, though, I think that should be it. Um, and he paused for a moment to kind of consider and ask, how have you been doing well since the incident?
Um,
He's referring to the Iron Phantom.
right, right. Um,
Yeah.
okay, he gives a sort of languid shrug and goes, "Life's been as it has been. What about you? Lingering nightmares?"
Kind of like chuckles a little bit at that. No worse than usual, but so suppose it's fortunate I'm a bit of an insomniac, staves those off, so to speak. At any rate, it doesn't affect me too badly.
Um,
Actually, let me roll another deception on that. Just
yeah, do that. And Beckett will.
24. Oh yeah,
Whew,
no, he's fine. Totally not
just
affected
in
by these
case.
horrific monsters that nearly tore you guys limb from limb, or however that whole thing went down.
Yeah, that's fine. Um, I think
It'd be
again,
funny if
like
if later if later it turns out like they like almost died of these things or something. We haven't seen the future, but
yeah, I think again, Beckett can press X to doubt, but the poker face is perfect. So what does he know? um,
mm, yeah.
but he will sort of chuckle and say, "Yeah, I've got my own brew to keep. Those at bay." And he sort of raises his cold cup of coffee, takes a swig. You been in that sort of situation before?
Oh, not uh, certainly nothing like that. At least not being trapped in that case. Most of the monsters well I've dealt with have been ones of fiction. And I like gestures to like one of the notebooks in his hand.
Hmm,
I think like if you guys spent enough time together on this boat, you probably would have seen him like writing in his notebook any spare moment like when you guys were in the safe room.
sure, sure. As
Yeah.
well, it's generally advised to write what you know, so I think you've got a little bit more fuel for it than you did.
Certainly, certainly, just need to figure out sort of incorporate it into. But I'll work that out later.
Have you been in Einquell long?
About a few months now.
Huh.
Um, in present day probably would have been longer, but I feel like this would take place like a little bit earlier in the year.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't really matter the exact time, but it's
Um,
yeah, certainly taking a bit of getting used to.
yeah, well, I don't imagine that that made an especially fun impression for how things usually are around here. We,
Not
uh,
terribly.
yeah,
But then again, those beasts weren't exactly Anquelian in nature, so I can't exactly judge it off of that.
that's true. We get a rep for, well, being on the bright and friendlier side of things, but I wouldn't say that, he sort of gestures around to the dark room. Things aren't always all bright and happy around here either. You don't
Oh,
gotta answer
okay.
this. I know it's your own business is your own. You've got your own things to go up to, but
Mm-hmm.
what brought you out to this country?
Mm. Kind of pauses for a moment, sort of considering like what he should say, how much to say, that sort of thing. And then finally he answers, at the request of my employer, let's call them. Normally I wouldn't go out this far, but, well, duty calls, as they say. Hopefully once I'm able to get this particular job wrapped up, I'll be able to, return from whence I came.
Hmm.
Not that Ankle is an unpleasant place to be in, but, well, I do prefer the familiarity of, my place of origin.
Yeah, it's always better if you can have the home field advantage, but your dedication
Indeed.
to your work is commendable.
He kind of nods and, like, smiles a little bit, like, "Hmm, kind of you to say. I pity my, employer can't be quite so, uh, what's the word, like, uh, gr- it's gratitude, but, like, in a different way, like,
Um,
I'm blanking on the exact wording.
I
Grateful
know
not
I
to,
know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Pity my employer can't be, quite so grateful. He kind of mumbles.
bosses rarely are, but at the very least, I hope you'll be well compensated for all your efforts.
Oh, one can certainly hope so. At any rate, I've probably taken up enough of your time for today.
Huh. Well, I was catching up on my beauty sleep, but it's never a bother to meet with a generous client.
Hmm. No, it's I only have your contact information if I'm in need of your services again, but for now I think I'll take my leave. But thank you once again for your assistance with this matter. It's certainly made my job quite a bit easier than it would have.
Um, Beckett will pull out a business card to make sure Norman has his info.
Yeah, I think there's probably a chance that he might have given it to him beforehand, like after they got back to the mainland. But either way, he has one now. So
Yeah, that's also possible. Yeah, if
he
nothing else, they had to track down that fucking bear.
that is true. Yeah, he's probably gonna make a mention of that. Oh, and do give me a call if you've managed to get any more information on the whereabouts of our dear captain. I know all of us are quite eager to speak with him.
Oh, I'm keeping an eye out. Don't you worry.
Mm. Well, you have a
And
pleasant rest of your day, Beckett. Uh,
yeah, you take care of yourself, Norman.
yeah, kind of tip his hat to him, take his coat off where he hung it up from, and he'll head out. I think once he's out of the building, kind of, he's sort of like walking down the street back to whatever inn he's currently staying at. Over his telepathic link, he'll relay to his patron. So, was that satisfactory to you? Good enough, I suppose. That location will be of great use to us. I think we have quite a bit more to discuss now, don't we? And he'll head off then.
I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
like to request uh can Norman make a perception check?
Absolutely. Let's see. 14, not too bad.
Okay. And
Want to roll stealth against this, or
yeah, let me just what's it? Okay. So that's a 21. Um
okay?
and
Yeah, he's definitely not seeing him.
I think what it actually is Beckett on on the card he made sure Norman had just had a short-term listening uh thing on it.
Interesting. Well, unfortunately, it's a telepathic connection because that's how the Prince of Chords is able to talk to him from back in his realm. So
Yeah.
tragically, he's probably not going to hear much. Yeah. Sorry,
Not
Beckett.
so, but he's,
Yeah.
keeping an ear out. You never know.
Yeah, fair enough.
He's doing his best with what he's got.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Um yeah. Unfortunately, these are two very reticent characters. Oh, here comes
Yeah.
Cat to interrupt just in time. Hey, Tofu.
Hey, kitty. Yeah. I did want to ask out of curiosity because well, Beckett does have like contacts to Lynn and Moria. Would Beckett be inclined to tell either of them that somebody's been sniffing around about them or people they might be associated with, or would he be keeping this all under wraps?
Um, he. I don't think he would seek them out like yeah, it's not good business to blow up a client spot after the fact.
Yeah, rat them out
Um
immediately.
yeah.
Plus, he doesn't
He
really
yeah.
have any indication that Norman is like any hard evidence that Norman is planning on doing anything bad to these people with this information. All he really currently knows is that Norman's just trying to find where they are for the most part.
Right. Yeah, I think, he is keeping an eye out on the various connections as much as he's been able to out of curiosity, but he's not going to like actively pursue further just because, you know, he no longer has reason to. He wasn't able to glean much from Norman's intentions, which in itself is very interesting, but is also
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, he's only got so much free time.
It is true. Yeah, I think we can probably wrap things up here for now.
Hmm. Yes.
Hey.
Thank you for the game with these two shady boys.
Thank you very much for playing with me. I had a very great time with this.
Hee.
And thank you very much to our listening audience, both present and future. We wish you all a very good time zone. Bye, everybody!
Bye.